Hello, everybody. So this video is going to be strictly on MLA. It is for anyone and everyone. So MLA is Modern Language Association. It is typically the format that we write in for all English classes. You most commonly are already doing this. It's 12-point font, Times New Roman, double spacing, okay, 1-inch margins, which is preset on your computers usually anyway. So I'm going to go over a Word doc, and then I have a few PowerPoints that we're going to kind of try to breeze through. Hopefully you can use this for any quiz or whatever you might have coming up about MLA formatting. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so this first document here I wrote up, this is not anything super exciting. This is going to go over all of the, I guess, commonly used items when you are writing a paper that is fairly lengthy, or at least most likely a research paper. So the first thing we're going to talk about is summarizing and paraphrasing. They're two different things, even though they sound exactly the same. Think of it as summarizing being that you're summarizing a whole book. Paraphrasing is just the chapter. Okay, so for both of these, you're using your own words. However, a summary is the overall, the big picture, like what was it about? Okay, so if you went to a movie, I want you to tell me what it's about. That's a summary. Paraphrasing is when you just take a line of something and you change it to be your own wording. And that's really it. You're just changing the words of the author's thoughts. You're still telling me the same thing. You're just using your words. Both of these still need to be cited. Okay. Paraphrasing, even though it is not your words, it is someone else's thought, so it still needs to be cited. Okay, quoting. Whenever you quote a material, okay, whether it is from a movie or a book, a journal article, anything, it has to have quotation marks. And it means that the wording is exactly the same, unless of course you need to change tense usage or add a word to make it grammatically correct, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so everything is the same, punctuation, spelling, everything. And then keep in mind, we're going to move on to this later too. When you quote something, you have to explain it. You have to be able to explain why that quote fits wherever you put it and how it relates back to what you're trying to say or prove, okay? The next thing, with quoting, if you do not use quotation marks and you don't cite, then you're plagiarizing, okay? If you use quotation marks, it indicates to your reader that it is not your words. If you don't cite it, then you're still plagiarizing, but we all are aware then that it did come from somewhere else. So it is very important to make sure that you cite. Okay, so your inline citations means that it's quite literally in that line. Okay, this is different from your works cited page. So here's a few. These are parenthetical meaning that it is in parentheses. An in-text citation is right here, where it says, according to McNaughton, that is the author's last name with the page number in the parentheses. So that's both an in-text and a parenthetical. Okay. Oops, sorry. These are like your bread and butter for your paper. Okay. Your paper is your meat and potatoes. It's your main point, but without the bread and butter, you can't prove your point. You need these quotes. You need the supporting evidence. Okay. You're using, well, MLA 8 is now MLA 9 because they changed something yet again. So you do need to use both. You need parenthetical, you need in text, and then you have to have a works cited page. Okay, your works cited page tells me all of the information that is listed within the body of your paper in those either parentheticals or in text citations. And your works cited page is strictly for all the material that is quoted within your paper. You are not adding any of the materials that you read and did not use. Okay, if it's used and it's in your paper, it goes on your works cited page. Okay, you are also not writing the word page. You're not putting a P, you're not putting a PP or a PG for anything. It's just author's last name and page number, no comma. Okay, so general hints that we already talked about. MLA format, 12-point font, Times New Roman, double spaced. Okay, cite everything. Just cite it all. Okay, just cite everything. You want to avoid, this goes back to quoting, you want to avoid floating or dropped quotes, which means that it's a quote that's trying to stand by itself. It's its own sentence. You didn't introduce it and you didn't explain it. It's just there. And your reader has to assume what it means or what you what you're trying to make it mean. So you have an incorrect example right here. Evan Smith disagrees, period. Quote, new teachers are burning out faster, end quote. That's a floating quotation. Okay, that is a floating quote. You want to introduce it. So right here, Evan Smith maintains that, then the quote, new teachers are burning out faster. Okay, so an easy way to do this, you can have a colon or a comma. Okay, so-and-so said, or as stated by. Okay, so there's some examples there. Use only the parts that are useful. Okay, so I give you another example of this play was, I have to confess, the greatest waste of time and money I have ever encountered. Now, if I'm going to be using this, I don't need to put the I have to confess because it's not mine. It's not my words. I'm borrowing it. I just want to say that the play was a waste of time and money. Okay, so what you're going to do when you omit those words is you're going to use a placeholder of ellipses, no parentheses. Okay, the 3 dots is a placeholder to say that there are other words there, but they're not needed here. Okay, so here's how it would be. According to Joe Schmo, this play was ... the greatest waste of time and money ... because then he put I have ever encountered. Okay, that's not my kid. Okay, sorry. You don't want to put this because it changes. So he said, again, in his original, that it's the greatest waste of time and money. You do not want to make it so that you're twisting the meaning, where here it says like this play was the greatest. It wasn't, because that's not what he said. He said it was the greatest waste of time and money. Okay, you want to make sure that it remains true to what it was saying. The next part is also that you incorporate your own words into the sentence to make it grammatically correct. Okay, so Joe Schmo describes the play as the greatest waste of time and money. Incorrect would be Joe Schmo about the play, the greatest waste of time and money. It doesn't make any sense. We know what they're trying to say. It's just not coming out correctly. Okay, now this flows into maintaining that grammatical correctness. Okay, you are allowed to alter a quotation, however, like it says here, in a very limited way by using brackets. So the original quote, every night I creep, okay, present tense, down the stairs past my parents' bedroom door and sneak out the window. Okay, so it's more like present perfect because it's continuing to happen. I creep, it's every night. So the correct way to do this would be Jane Brain described, past tense, okay, she wrote it down, how she creeps, because it's continual, down the stairs each night and sneaks out the window. Okay, so the subject verb agreement has to remain consistent with what she said. Okay, so because she is continually doing it, present perfect tense, we have to add that S to make it correct. Okay, and it's in brackets to show that we altered the original quote. Okay, and that's what we are adding. Okay, the same thing holds true if you need to add like the or is, on. Okay, that's why occasionally when you read something, you see brackets. Okay, the next thing, sorry that it's on 2 pages. Let's see if I can do that. There we go. Okay. For quotes that are longer than 4 typed lines of prose. And what I mean by that is it is 4 typed lines when you transfer it onto your Word document, not it's more than 4 lines in the textbook that you're reading. Okay, it has to be more than 4 typed lines on your document itself. Okay, this is going to be considered a block quote. Block quotes have to be formatted differently than regular quotes because they're long, they're lengthy. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to indent 10 spaces on the left side of the entire quote. Okay, that's two tabs. Okay, so you're hitting tab twice. You're going to continue on with the double spacing because obviously, and then you're going to get rid of the quotation marks and you're going to put the parenthetical citation outside of the period of the last sentence in quotation after 2 spaces. Use these sparingly. Okay, yes, we all love that they take up a lot of space. However, when you use a block quote, okay, and this is a big, I guess, misconception. People like to throw them into their papers because they're like, oh, it took up space. I don't really have to talk that much because it explains itself. Incorrect. You still have to explain your quote. It still has to have a reason for being there that you, the author, have to tell me. Okay. So obviously I didn't put the full example here. I just gave you a small example. Okay. So right here is the beginning of a paragraph, which is why it's indented once. Okay. So instead of stages, McNaughton breaks down Dickinson's death poems into classes. She writes, okay, and then this starts my quote, the poems on death fall into 4 classes, blah, 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 okay, and then here is my parenthetical citation, okay. So you will see that it is longer than 4 typed lines. It's all indented 2 times on the left-hand side only. There are no quotation marks, okay? So then again, now that it's been introduced right here, that's the introduction, I would then go on to explain what this means and how it pertains to what I'm trying to prove within my paper, okay? When you have a long quote, like I mean, at least a page long block quote, you need to break it up because you're gonna have a hard time going back and forth as to what you're trying to explain throughout that quote, okay? You're also going to introduce the author by their full name the first time you ever mention them, okay? So example, Ruth Flanders McNaughton, full name, pronounced in her essay, then the essay of the title of the essay, that blah, 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 quote, okay? Now, after that first time, you're going to then only use the last name of that author, okay? So then later on in the essay, it says McNaughton acknowledges that Dickinson treats death with respect. Okay, you do not want to use their first name because you're not best friends. You don't know them, okay? So you're still trying to remain respectful. I don't know what that noise was. You're also going to use signal phrases to indicate summaries or paraphrases, okay? Sorry, my daughter's waking up. Here is an example. According to Robin Trudeau, essayist and author of The Half Cup, people need to remember the positive things in their lives to maintain a state of psychological equilibrium. She also emphasizes the importance of, okay, so there's my citation, okay, and here, all right, I didn't put, here's the page number, there it is, okay. So you just need to keep in mind that even when you're paraphrasing, you're still citing those signal phrases according to, or Trudeau also, Trudeau goes further. Okay, those are your signal phrases to signal to your reader that this is coming from somewhere else. Okay. You don't want to include yourself, like right here, I myself. In research papers, they are supposed to be research-based, not opinion-based. If you put I in first-person statements, it's going to turn your research paper into an opinion-based paper. Okay. Now, if you don't know the author of something, as this happens often with many websites, you're just going to use the title or the title for the first time, okay, full title in the essay or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, you're going to use an abbreviated form of it for parenthetical citations. Okay, so example, according to the Old Book of Hogwash, the world was due to end April 15th, 1999. Okay, there's my parenthetical for the page number I found it on. Many ancient writers predicted that the world was due to end April 15th, 1999, and they just took Old Book. Okay, so my general rule of thumb for this is that if the title of the book is 4 words or longer, then you're going to be abbreviating it. But again, this is only for books or sources that do not have an author, okay, or they're unknown. If there's no page numbers, again, as is the case with websites, you're just using the author's name then to cite, okay? You don't need to have a page number unless there's a page number that's already associated with it, okay? You obviously want to avoid plagiarism because it is technically illegal, okay? It's, you know, taking somebody else's words or ideas and passing them off as your own. We don't want to do this, okay? Paraphrasing can also be using an old paper that you wrote, you yourself, and trying to revamp it. I'm not entirely sure why though, but MLA does consider that to be plagiarizing, okay? If it came from somewhere else, just cite it. It's almost more work at these, you know, at this point to plagiarize something because we have so many software programs that can detect plagiarism. It's just not worth it. It's really not. Okay, next thing, thesis statements. They're the roadmap for your paper. It tells the reader what you are trying to prove throughout your paper, okay? That by the end of it, you will have proven this, right? So that is the point A to point B of the paper. Your thesis statement is going to be located in 2 different places. It's going to be within that first introduction. Depending on the page length of your paper, it's usually in that like first paragraph, in that introductory paragraph. However, if you're writing like a 10, 20 page paper, your introduction might take 2 or 3 paragraphs. So it'll be within that, okay? So it's typically the last sentence of your first paragraph and then the first one or two sentences in your conclusion as well, because you have to restate it to show that you have proven that whole point. Okay, you also need on your first page, because MLA does not require a cover page. And when I say it doesn't require one, I mean, don't do it. Okay, you need a header, which is your last name and page number, and then your heading, which is your name, your professor's name, the class and assignment, and then the date. Okay, it's typically the due date of the assignment, not the date that you're writing it. You'll hit enter one time, center it, put the title, you'll hit enter one time, put it back to the left-hand margin and begin your paper. Very easy. Okay, and then we have the example of the works cited page. You'll notice it starts a brand new page with this header up here. Okay, works cited is centered. It is not bold. It is not underlined. It's nothing fancy. It stays 12-point font. Okay, and then we start it over here. Okay, this is going to be what's called a hanging indent. So your source starts flush against that left-hand margin, and then the lines that are still within that source, but are after that first line, are indented one time. Okay, so you'll notice Buchanan is flush against the left-hand margin, and then the word homosexuals is a tab in, along with the subsequent lines for that source entry. Okay, you'll also notice that your works cited page is alphabetized by author's last name. Okay, all right, carrying on. Oh, I just said those things. In my personal opinion, I think it's a good practice that as you're writing your paper, you are putting in your citations, because you don't want to have to try to go back to find them unless you have some like way that you're highlighting things. I don't know. If you're doing this, it helps you to avoid plagiarism because you're citing them as you go and you're writing your work cited as you go. It shows that you're using that information and you're not just like, oh, shoot, I don't know where I got that. Let's just throw something in here. If you have 10 sources that you've read, but you're only using 5, you're only including those 5 then on your works cited page and in the body of your paper. However many sources I find in your body of your paper is how many I should find on your works cited page. Similarly, if I see that there's an author listed in the body of your paper, but I don't find it on your works cited page, I'm going to investigate a little bit. Maybe you did a citation incorrectly. Okay. A lot of times citations are done incorrectly. You can use easybib.com to help you with that. You'll also notice that if you go to references, if you have Word on your computer, you can hit insert citation, you can hit manage sources. Okay, this is going to be okay, and you can add your sources in and then change your style to MLA. Okay, it's down here, but this is the 7th edition, so it's a little behind on the times. Okay, and then you can create your works cited page. Okay, so Microsoft Word makes it pretty easy. I'm not quite sure about Google Docs, but we can find out about that. Okay, and if you guys give me one moment, I'm going to stop share. I'm going to actually pause this recording because I'm going to go get my daughter, and then we will resume with the PowerPoints. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. You kind of just saw the top of her head going by. All right. So now we are going to do a quick PowerPoint just to show you how to do some quotes, like how to embed them. Bear with me. Okay, there we go. All right, so super fun times. Okay, let's go. Sorry, what's a quote? Why do we do it? We're going to ice it. Okay, so we know what a quote is, or at least you should. Okay, you know, when you're writing a research paper or an analysis, an argumentative essay, any type of informational, anything where you need to gain or gather information from other people, other places to prove your point is when you're going to need these quotations. Okay. You want to do this because you gain reliability, credibility. You're providing outside information to strengthen your point. Okay. You're protecting yourself obviously against plagiarism, and you just demonstrate to your teachers your ability to include sources. Okay, so you're including it when you're providing examples and evidence. Do not include it in your thesis statement or in a topic sentence. Okay, so it should never stand by itself. That's that dropped or floating quote that we talked about earlier. You shouldn't begin a sentence with a quote because it's kind of hard to then have that introduction at the end of the sentence. And you always need to explain it after you cite it and after it's there. Okay, so we're going to use the ICE method. Sometimes I like to explain it as like your quote is a person. Okay. So you're bringing your friend to your party. Your friend is the quote in this metaphor. You don't just leave them at the door. You introduce them to other people that you know. Okay. So you want to introduce your quote. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is show you how to introduce it. Okay. There's a few different ways that you could do it. Complete sentence, explanatory phrase. They're kind of the same. Short quotes or part that's paraphrased. Okay. So the first one is that we're going to use the I have a dream speech for these examples. Okay. So here's the quote. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Okay, we should all be well aware of this speech. Okay, so complete sentence is going to describe the quotation or provides information about it, and you have to use a colon when you are inserting this quote. Okay, here's your example. I'm going to go right here. So here's your complete sentence. Meaning it could stand alone. In his speech, Dr. King had a dream. Done. It has a subject, it has a verb, it has a predicate, okay, so it has all the parts of a complete sentence, could stand alone. You have your colon, okay, you have, there it is, complete sentence with your colon and your quotes that is set apart with quotation marks, okay. The next one is, going to be an explanatory phrase, okay. Begin your sentence with a phrase that introduces the quote and punctuate with a comma. This is the one we probably will most commonly use, okay, so-and-so says. In his famous speech, he said, comma, I have a dream. Okay, so here's your explanatory phrase. Here's your comma and your quotes. Okay, next one is short quotes in your sentence. Stick to just a few words. That's probably the biggest thing. This is a little harder to do without seeming like you're copying the whole thing. Okay, so here's your example. Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. King dreamed of a day when his children would only be judged by the content of their character. Okay, so here's your quote, quoted material, set with quotation marks, sorry. And last one is you're going to paraphrase, okay? You're going to paraphrase the quote and you're going to finish it with the actual quote. So example, Dr. King dreamed of a day when his 4 children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Okay, paraphrase text, quote. Okay. So here's some other examples that you can use according to blah, 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 according to blah, 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 for example, for instance, okay? And then we are going to ice it. Where is my thing? Okay, so now we are going to cite it. We already kind of went over this. There's a few, different ways to cite, MLA or APA. We are using MLA for English class, okay? This is also used in high school for the majority of the time. So you have, an in-text citation and your works cited page. Okay, so I also called your in-text your inline, okay? Because then you have in-text, which is embedded into the sentence, and then your parenthetical, which is in the parentheses at the end, okay? So your in-text citation is, it's in the text, it's in the line, okay? It's in the body of your paper. The works cited page is a separate page, completely separate. If you end, let's say you have an 8-page paper and on that 8th page, you only have 2 lines. Well, you're going to hit enter all the way down to get to the 9th page, and that's going to be your works cited page, okay? It's completely separate. So MLA, you're going to introduce your quote. You're going to have your quote and you're going to cite. And this is very important. The period goes on the outside of that closing parentheses, okay? Because that citation belongs to that sentence. If you put the period before it, it means that that citation is going to the next sentence, okay? Where did I want to say? I already went over this, okay? Then how to cite web sources, but you guys don't need this because you know why? Because we have easybib.com. So, your parenthetical citation will be the first part of the entry from the works cited page, okay? So if your source has an author, that means that your parenthetical is going to have that author's last name. If it does not have it, it's going to be the, your parenthetical will be the abbreviated title, okay? Which means that your works cited entry will be starting with the title of that work, okay? Here's an example of a non-author source. Okay, so it's called Research on the Effects of Media Violence. Here it is. Okay, and then here's another example, Levine. Okay, and then of course you have to explain it. Okay, so after you've introduced it and you have your citation, you have to provide an analysis that connects the quote to the main idea and topic sentence. Okay, why is it relevant? How does it connect to that thesis statement, what you're trying to prove? How does it strengthen your point? Okay, if it does not support your statement, then it shouldn't be there. Okay, this proves, this illustrates, this explains what this says is, or what this means. Okay, then you're going to embed it. Important things to remember. Make sure that everything is grammatically consistent. Okay, that's going to be that ellipses, brackets. Okay, if it's more than 4 lines, it's a block quote. It must support your thesis, otherwise it's not relevant. I think that's about it. And here's a final product for you. Okay, like I said, I was going to try to whiz right through these. So you have your introduction before the traffic lights invention. The quote: it was not uncommon for bicycles, animal-powered carts, and motor vehicles to share the same thoroughfares with pedestrians. Accidents frequently occurred between the vehicles. And then your citation, Federal Highway Administration. And then of course the explanation: after the invention and implementation of it, the number of collisions was reduced and thus created a safer environment for automobile travel. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next one. This is going to be very quick, I promise. Why are we doing research? Okay, because we need to know things. We have to find things out so that we can prove what we're saying. Okay, if we don't know it, then we have no idea what we're talking about. Okay, so research is a process to discover knowledge and understand, to prove lies and support truths. Okay, we Google it, okay, all the time. Maybe we're researching something on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, I don't know, but that's research. Okay, if you're trying to find out where somebody is on Snap Maps, that's research. I think that's a bad example, but it's still research. Okay, why do we do it? Because we're trying to build knowledge, we're trying to learn something, we're trying to understand something, we're trying to differentiate. The best example right now is with the coronavirus. Everybody's trying to figure out, should I get vaccinated? Should I not get vaccinated? Everybody's doing their own research on it. Okay. You want to test theories. You're answering the who, what, where, when, why, and occasionally how of the subject or the topic that you're talking about. Okay. Where do you do this? The library, online databases, not Wikipedia. Wikipedia can be edited by anybody. It can have anything on it. So it is not a credible source. There are one too many hands in the pot, so to speak. Okay. So anything but Wikipedia is fine. Who is doing it? My child, my dogs, you, because you're going to be looking for things for your research papers. Okay. Elon Musk, Tesla, anybody, everybody. All right. Next, when? Start as soon as you can. Once you get the assignment, start doing your research. The sooner you start it, the easier it's going to be. The easier it's going to be for you to narrow stuff down. How are you going to do this? You're going to pick a topic you're interested in, feel passionate about, or your teacher's going to assign a topic. I don't know. You're going to go to the library. You're going to go on your computer. You're going to start with Google. You can also do google.com/scholar. Okay, super fun. Those will give you a bunch of scholarly articles. And here's a fun graphic for you. Okay, choose your topic. Determine the fields of study involved. List the items that are interesting, narrow your topic down, research what the experts say, fact check your information, organize it, create a bibliography or a works cited page, and then update your outline and fill in any gaps and do your paper. Bam. Okay, now let's talk about thesis statements. Sorry. My son is on the phone. Okay, so a thesis statement is going to make a claim that others can possibly dispute. So you want it to be somewhat controversial. Okay, it's going to tell the reader how you are going to interpret the subject matter within the body of your paper. Okay, it's going to pose a question on a subject. It's going to give your paper direction, and it's going to contain a subject, opinion, and proof. However, you're going to do this without including the phrase I. Okay. So here's an example. Emily Dickinson used events from her life to better compose and contribute to her poetry. The many deaths throughout her life contributed to her style of writing, and perhaps most notably, her symbolism of death found in a multitude of her poems. So that bottom half, that last sentence, is the opinion. Okay, the proof is here. Okay, used events from her life, and the subject is Emily Dickinson. Okay, so qualities of a strong thesis statement. The length, it's typically one sentence. However, depending, of course, on the length of your paper. It might be 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, so it all depends. The position is going to go at the beginning of your essay, typically in your introductory paragraph or paragraphs. Again, depending on the length of your paper, and then it's going to be restated in your conclusion. Okay, the strength for it to be persuasive, it has to be arguable. Okay, it has to kind of piss people off. It cannot be obvious. It cannot be a fact. Otherwise, you are not proving something. You are just writing about something everybody knows about already. Okay. All right. So typically, if you were in my class, I would pass around some topics and you would create your own thesis statement regarding those. Okay. So that's about all I have for now on MLA, thesis statements, researching. I hope this was a helpful video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.